Hi, I'm Fraser Gordon. I taught for 50 years, pretty well all the grades from kindergarten through to grade 12. After teaching 20, I found something that excited me immeasurably in my teaching, and it was a course that I was set on involving brain theory and brain function and brains and memory. And after that, it basically set the whole way that I was going to work with the children and understand how my planning would be and what programs I was going to use and how I was going to help the children to grow in their learning. So, empowering students to construct their learning. In here, empowering, construct, and learning are the keys. Construction, here's the big part. This slideshow and what I'm talking about is critical that it's done with teachers, administrators, but really with children. It needs to be done with children. Their understanding of this is critical to their learning. So, a path to understanding how learning is constructed by both students and teachers in that partnership. The goal. Students will realize that their success in learning is totally dependent upon their attendance, their focus, their participation, showing their involvement, and their positivity towards the learning. These factors, which we tell them all the time, but they're highly significant because they must realize they're the builders. They're who's doing the building. So without being there, you can't build. Without the focus, you can't. So that's what's critical. The teacher? The teacher creates an environment that provides opportunity for rich exploration of the curriculum. In that environment, students will explore, build, and consolidate. Discovery is a part of building, of the students' building. Therefore, they have to involve themselves. Without the involvement, the learning won't take place. What theory of learning empowers the students? Here we're getting closer into the definition of empower. There it is. The big one, understanding. Understanding is the key to learning. Without it, learning doesn't take place. Questions often initiate the process of understanding. And questions are natural to human beings. We all have questions. Where we go, there are questions. What we see, there are questions. And there are questions. They're questions that come naturally from us. So if these two pictures, which were both taken in Puckatawagan, where I taught for about 5 years up in northern Manitoba, the first thing is, what questions do you have about the pictures? Everybody's going to have a bunch of different questions, but the questions are speaking or asking for understanding. Here's a few questions that people asked about it. Where was this picture taken? What is the bear doing? Is that fire? And what time of day is it? The questions are from different people, not from the same person. And what time of day is it? Well, this happened to be at sunset. So, is it a fire? We don't know. So you can get into discussions, and it's the kind of question that we ask when we're out walking. What's that? Why did that happen, etc. So questions are natural to us. But students tend not to ask the questions because they're afraid that whatever answer is going to be wrong or the question is going to be silly. They have to come to grips and realize that it's natural. And they do it naturally when they're not in the class. The process of understanding. Okay, this process, here's how it works. First of all, our short-term memories, that's the memory we're conscious of, is bombarded continually with various stimuli. Ideas, talking, colors, everything. And a lot of what we're bombarded with, to us, is nonsense. Nonsense. And if our short-term memory, if it remains nonsense in our short-term memory, we lose it. It goes. New data enters our STM as nonsense and will pass through as nonsense if no meaningful connections are made with it. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the long-term memory. When connections are made from the information in the long-term memory, which goes to the short-term memory, then sense is made of the nonsense, and it enters our long-term memory where it stays. Data is moved from our STM to our LTM two ways only. The first way is trauma, and in trauma it goes directly into the long-term memory. The other, and that's so traumatic events will move back data directly. The other is understanding, which is a repeating process of nonsense to sense, so that the understanding will be something that it takes a while. Different pieces of information and facts will come to the long term. Long term will throw more back at the STM until there is an understanding, a place where in the long-term memory this information will fit. So we do not make sense of data and store it in our LTM until we understand it. That is a given. So what is the carrier from STM to LTM? The hippocampus. It's a great name. The hippocampus. The hippocampus is a very, very amazing piece of the brain. It's located just above the brain stem, the old brain, and just below the cortex. It helps in memory. It helps in motivation, and it helps in emotions. That's all part of the limbic system. The hippocampus looks like, or it's often referred to as the seahorse of the brain, because it's sort of shaped like a seahorse, because it's wedged and protected, highly protected by the various tissues of the brain that are part of the limbic system. The hippocampus is the processing vehicle. It's what takes information back and forth between the long term and the short term. Okay? So as a result, what happens is that the short term, or the long term memory, the information there, that's the knowledge we have, is brought to the short term where the nonsense is, and there's matches trying to be made. What does it mean? Does it remind me of something? This is a neural network. The neural networks are where our ideas, concepts, and memories and everything are stored. So, the hippocampus connects the brain's neural network with the STM. And that's a big one. What does it look like when the hippocampus is at work? Well, let's have a look. And you remember back to your classrooms. I don't get it. The new data seems to be held, needs to be held in the STM a little longer. Okay, so I need to hold that longer. Stop, wait. The hippocampus searches again to find context for the data. Still nothing. Finally, I forgot. What did you say? I missed it. Well, the hippocampus is still unable to find context for the data to put it into the LTM or understanding. So no connection to the information has been made yet. It may seem as if the information is lost at this point. Now, the STM holds pieces of information that it sort of is working with for longer than even you're aware of it. Okay? So in your classroom, these are statements that are seen regularly. The LTM carries and stores everything put in it. You're not conscious of it until you call on it. Okay? You can call on it by listening and focusing. You can also call it by asking questions. So as you ask a question, you're calling on your LTM. Understanding is the pathway to and from the long-term memory. Okay, let's look at the long-term memory just a little bit more detail. The long-term memory has, I'm using the term cognitive hooks. These are neural circuits that are added to and help make your knowledge fuller. So we have ideas and we have facts that are brought to our brain, and the putting together of the ideas and the facts create an understanding which makes it part of the circuit, and that's where information remains and stays. Okay, so the metaphor of a hook is pretty good. Okay, wow, Jenny got it right. Why not me? Got it right away. Why did Jenny learn faster? Well, in classrooms, children learn at different rates, and part of that is controlled by what their background knowledge is. The more background knowledge they have, the faster they will learn. So children in a class who are listening to something that's being presented or whatever, if it's done that way, what happens is they're still trying to figure out the last thing, and the rest, some of the class are way ahead, and so on and so forth. So it's important that we realize that they are constructing, therefore they're not all going to construct at the same time. Okay, understanding achieved by associations. So this is how learning can take place. It's a demonstration. The word, anti establishmentarianism. Nonsense, right? That's nonsense. Okay, this is nonsense. But do I recognize anything in it? This is what's going on in the process of learning. This is how it's built. Well, I look at that. Anti-disestablishmentarian. Okay. A second look, when we're looking at it now, there may be things you recognize. For example, anti, meaning against. Dis, meaning not against. Establishment. Well, an establishment can be a building, a system of governing, a system. Well, let's stop there for a minute. Anti-disestablish, not against a building, not against an idea, And then mentarianism, some people may realize what ism means, but the idea here is this. If you're able to recognize the words or prefixes, you called on information already stored in the LTM to make sense of something that was presented in your STM. So, and that's how, this is the active, this is a form of building. Okay, questioning is the path to learning. It takes knowledge to make knowledge. The more you know, the more you learn. Our beauty as a species lies in our ability to formulate and express ourselves in questions. In other words, we do build and make our learning. And that's a big power that kids need to feel. How can UMath be used to help students begin the process of understanding? Well, basically UMath's design is based on student understanding math processes rather than simply memorizing them. When introducing UMath to a class, it's usually good to start with the whole class, and you and the class are focused on on whatever it is, the idea that you're working with, and through the interaction of you and the class, you come to an understanding of what UMath is going to do and how it's going to do it. Okay, it's not a teacher replacement, and it's certainly not practice work, although it does have sheets that come from it, so it's both on the computer and off, but those sheets are basically presenting problems that the information must be used to help. Okay? And strategically planning how to use UMath is critical. Example of this, here's one page from UMath. It's an introduction to fractions. And in this, there's a number of ideas presented and a couple of things the person has to do. Okay? So, locate and create the big ideas through questioning. So you look at that and you see, okay, what fraction of the part is green? So fraction's a part of it, part of something, okay? Circles cut into 3 equal pieces. Oh, it's not just 3 pieces, but they're equal. This is things that your students do with UMath in terms of questioning as well. Then UMath asks them to do something. One of the equal parts of the circle is colored green. One of the equal parts, okay? So, that being 1, it's 1 of 3. There's a fraction, 1 of 3. Why is it important for the parts to be equal? Now, these are questions that the children may come up with after they're used to this process. It's also questions the teacher can use as well to help the students focus on areas. This is basically the same. It's just with an example at a higher level. It looks like in the intermediate, okay? Locate and create the big ideas through questioning. Both the students' questioning and your questioning. Okay. Questions, questions, questions. As students work through UMath 10, they should be generating their own questions based on what happens as they move through the program. UMath 10 is helping to construct knowledge. The key realization, construction of knowledge. Knowledge is constructed. In conclusion, at all ages we are the builders of our own knowledge. When we realize questions can be friendly, they can be tools that help us to understand, not always probes to see how much we know or don't know. And the teacher is not a teller, but leads the students to grapple with ideas and concepts, construct new knowledge through understanding.